and welcome my panelists to the stage. And we've got Melissa Smarr. I'm sure I'm not the first or last person that has called you that, Melissa.
That is
Melissa
correct, Steve,
Smarr,
but thank you.
Yeah, with the Silver Shield program. And I've got Stephen. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce your last name, Stephen. Can you do it for me?
Sure, Izaguirre.
Izaguirre with the Virginia Attorney General Office. I just happened to be on a discussion with Stephen the other day, and he was talking about what the Attorney General's office does, and I said, Stephen, we're talking about scams on Friday, and if you can jump on and tell folks about what the Attorney General office, how they can help folks, that would be awesome. And then add to any of the discussion. Because Stephen and Melissa were our colleagues and friends, she was like, oh, that'd be great. So before we dive into the topic, and let's get to know the two of you a little bit better. I'll start with you, Stephen. Tell us a little bit about your background, what the Attorney General office does. And I want folks, even though both of our representatives today are from Virginia, every state has programs like this. So for example, it might be a little bit different in Nebraska for the Attorney General's office, but in general, what we want you to know is that there are resources out there if you, your clients, your loved ones, you feel that they are susceptible to scams. So Stephen, tell us a little bit about yourself and the AG office.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, and thank you, Melissa, for having me join you today to speak about a very important topic. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Louisiana. My family is an immigrant family that came from Mexico. So I grew up in a Spanish-speaking household and got into law enforcement. That was really my my calling since I was very young, going around arresting the restaurant customers. So I went into law enforcement and did that until about 2016. So I worked in uniform patrol in Louisiana and in Texas, and now find myself working for the Office of the Attorney General here in Virginia. I'm assigned to the Northern Virginia region and represent the office locally by doing outreach. So the Office of Attorney General is basically the attorney for the state government and all the different agencies that compose it. And obviously, the goal of the office is to protect the citizens of the state. And that includes scams and frauds, consumer protection issues, public safety and health issues, and a lot more. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what we do.
Great. Okay, excellent. Well, now let's get to know you a little bit better, Melissa. Tell us a little bit about your background, what led to your current role with Silver Shield, and then we'll dive into this topic. And I just want to remind the audience that they can ask questions at any time.
Yes, thank you, Steve and Stephen. Yes, my name is Melissa Smarr. I'm actually from the Northern Virginia area. I grew up in Springfield, and I've been with Fairfax County for 19 years. I actually started as a consumer investigator, handling complaints, a wide variety, tenant landlord, cable services, phone services, car complaints, anything that a transaction took place in Fairfax County, our office handled. Then I actually went into zoning enforcement, which was a total stretch that I never thought I would do, but it just so happened that it was a good move for me. And then I've been in this position now for 13 years. And I deal with complaints related to building code, as well as unlicensed contractors. And as I was telling Stephen before we got started, the Board of Supervisors actually encouraged us to create a unified approach to scam complaints. And so we created what we affectionately known as Silver Shield. So we've been doing this now for 4.5 years. The police are primarily responsible for prosecuting the crimes as they're able to. because we'll get into more about some of these scams never get solved, unfortunately. And then we also deal with the outreach piece. And we work with ARP every year to do a scam jam. And we are hoping in 2022 that we will hold it in person. And as soon as we have that information, I will send it to Steve so he can distribute it to his network. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Well, this is great. Well, Stephen and I are gonna drop behind the curtain now and turn the reins over to you, Melissa. I got a preview of your PowerPoint. It looks awesome. You're really gonna open, I know my eyes were open just briefly looking at it, on some different scams and things that we can do to help protect our loved ones. So I just want to remind the audience, go ahead and type in your questions as they come to you. And then Melissa, feel free to take a few pauses. And if there's anything that comes in, I'll make sure to address it.
Yes, thank you, Steve and Stephen, and welcome to everyone who is participating today from near and far. We're going to get into this presentation, and how I'm going to do it is I'm actually going to go over the first 5 top 10 scams of 2020, and then I'll ask Steve if there's any questions, go through the next 5. I'm going to go over some tips, and we're going to talk about holiday scams from last year and what to try to do to make sure that you don't become a victim of those type of scams as well. So I'm going to try to incorporate also some stories related to cases that either the police, myself, or other agencies within Fairfax County has either investigated or we have heard about, so that you kind of have an idea that anyone can be a victim, whether you're older, younger. And actually, they do say that there's studies out there that say that younger people are actually scammed more often. They have more time to recover any financial losses, but people who are 60 or older tend to be victimized for larger amounts of money. And of course, you've been saving your entire lives and for retirement. And that's where we've heard of people that have actually lost their entire life savings. So let's get started. The number one scam for the last couple of years has been the IRS impersonation scam. This can take several forms. This could be where they try to pretend to email you to say that you owe that you owe a big bill from previous taxes that have not been filed, which in fact the IRS is never going to call you or email you. They also will call. Some of these scams actually are precipitated by there are actually apps on cell phones where you can hide your real number and put in another number. Like, for example, the main office of the IRS Department of Taxation in Washington, D.C., and it'll come across your phone as IRS, thinking that, yeah, they're calling you for some reason, when in fact, it could be someone overseas or even someone here in the States trying to get money from you. They also will say that they're going to accept credit card. And as most of us know, the IRS, we will not take credit card to pay taxes. You've got to either do it in the form of a certified check. I think really that's the only way that you can pay for taxes. So, or direct deposit. So you want to make sure that you know about these scams. Also, as a quick tip, and I'll go over the more in-depth tips towards the end of the presentation, the fact that they're going to use any scare tactic to try to get money out of you is important for you all to know, and they will not stop at anything to get the money out of you. So remember that as we go through these scams. So that's the first one. The second one is the robocalls. Now, Congress and the Senate actually for the last several years has been trying to work on eliminating robocalls. However, we don't think they'll be ever officially completely eliminated. We think that they'll be reduced by the fact that the phone companies are actually on notice to reduce the number of robocalls by providing information on your phone. I know for T-Mobile, for example, which is my phone provider, will actually give you like a guide when the phone rings, if it's a potential scam caller and whether or not it's a low risk or a high risk. So those are some of the tools that they're using to try to make sure that you understand that it could be a fraud call or a scam call. Also, there is the do not call list that was initiated by the Federal Trade Commission in 2005. And this is good to eliminate some of the unwanted phone calls, what they call a telemarketer scams. It is not going to protect from the political calls because those are exempt. And the robocalls, unfortunately, are getting under that radar as well. I myself use the do not call registry that the Federal Trade Commission has. It definitely reduces, I believe, the calls that I would have gotten otherwise. So that is something you would have to do. You have to renew it every 10 years. And all the information is on their website about that. So just to keep that in mind. Sweepstakes scams. These have been taking many forms. There's the Jamaican lottery scam that has been reported in many different news media stories. We actually had a woman who called us a couple of months ago to say that she had won $100 million. And it literally took myself and my colleague about an hour to convince her that, in fact, this was a scam, because the scammers really wanted her to pay the taxes up front. And if you're ever lucky enough to win a lottery or a legitimate sweepstakes, they're not going to ask for the money up front because you'll be taxed probably by the IRS. So you just want to make sure that if it's too good to be true, then it is. That's another tip that I'm going to explain later on. You just, if it's something that in your gut doesn't sound right, then you need to go with what your gut's telling you. So luckily this woman wasn't scammed, but there have been people that have been scammed out of hundreds of millions of dollars that the Federal Bureau of Investigations have had to investigate. In some cases, they are successful in bringing these people to criminal prosecution, but a lot of them are overseas. So if they're in countries where we don't have extradition treaties, they're going to remain in their country, and it is hard for any of us, law enforcement, other government agencies, to try and stop them from doing that. So again, and also sweepstakes scams are also perpetrated via email as well as phone calls. The computer tech support scams. This is where they want to try to get control of your computer. And unless you have initiated the phone call, I recommend never, ever, ever giving control of your computer to anyone that you've not initiated. A lot of people want to use computers. We're having to use them more and more now because of the pandemic. Heck, we're all here virtually. But you want to make sure that if you have a problem with your computer and you don't have a family member that can help you fix the computer, that you want to go to, a lot of people go to Micro Center, and there's one in Maryland, and I know there's one in Vienna, Fairfax. A lot of people, including my own father, goes through Best Buy. I know they've changed the name recently from Geek Squad to their Best Buy program. So again, you just want to make sure that you don't give control of your computer. If it's the blue screen of what I call death that comes up, you can always turn off the computer, unplug it from the wall, and just start again to make sure that there are no viruses. I myself was scammed. Luckily, I did not lose money, but they tried to take control of my computer, and I was able to stop that. So again, you just want to be sure that if there is a problem with your computer, that in fact you're the one who's in control of at least getting it fixed and not being under pressure by someone you don't know. And then elder financial abuse, which is the last one on this slide. This can take very many forms. This could be identity theft, which we'll talk about more in depth later. This could be strangers stealing your money, family members stealing your money. Stephen and I are part of a financial exploitation task force that is led by our Adult Protective Services agency within Fairfax County. And so they investigate these complaints pretty much on a daily basis. And, they have a wide variety of people who have, lost their money, because of family members, because of in-laws, because of, strangers that have taken up residency in people's homes, which we can talk about in just a few minutes more in depth. So again, I'm not here to scare you, and Stephen also know that, but these are the true realities. I mean, we had a woman who was scammed out of her entire life savings because she let a stranger move into her house. And the reason why was because she was so lonely because she became widowed. And it was just a horrible story. And she ended up having to go back to work to be able to meet her, pay her monthly bills and make sure she fed herself, because she was completely out of money. And unfortunately, nobody was able to return it for her. Steve, is there any questions before I move on to the next slide?
Yeah, oh boy, they are coming in here, but
Okay.
let's address a few of them.
Sure.
First, somebody asked statute of limitations. I guess, are you going to talk about statute of limitations on some of these scams?
So Steve, it depends on what it is. So if it's a federal crime, the statute of limitations are longer. If it's a crime like with unlicensed contracting, for example, Virginia only allows 1 year from the date of the contract or the money's paid. So it depends on the crime, and some statute of limitations are as short as 1 year. Sometimes they can go up to 10 years. So that's kind of it would just depend on the crime, but that's kind of a broad range of statute of limitations.
Okay, great. And let's see, as always, I'm glad to see Catherine McCallum here. She's got a bunch of good questions. Let's address, I'll make sure to address some of those here, but let me bring up this question here that says, cell phone rings when caller identification reads scam alert. What does this mean? Could you explain this again? Thank you. We've all seen this on our cell phone and did not know what this means. Are all of these phone calls scams?
I think the best way to answer it is this. Again, with the Senate and Congress getting involved in late 2017 and early 2018, the governing bodies force the phone companies, all the phone companies, whether you have Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, or some other company, to identify possible scam alerts. So you have the power to be able to decide whether or not you want to answer the phone. If we've had some people tell us that they will answer the phone no matter what, because they are wanting to make sure they don't miss a phone call from their doctor, their pharmacy, from another company that they're trying to get a hold of. So if you know within the first 5 to 10 seconds that there is dead air, that it's a recording, you can always hang the phone up. And that's one of the tips I'll give at the end. I'll summarize these at the end. But most of the time, if the phone says that it's a scam alert, there's a good chance it could be a scam. But you as the consumer have the right to decide on whether or not you want to answer the phone. And if you decide to answer the phone and it's not who you think it is, or who are you expecting, you have the right to hang up the phone. And I know people are like, but that's rude, I shouldn't do that. I'd rather you be known as rude than to be ever scammed out of money.
Great feedback. Let me run through, I don't want to derail your PowerPoint.
No,
but,
please,
let me run through
Steve.
some of these questions, and
Yeah.
you can choose to answer these now or at the end. But
Let's just do them
Catherine,
now, that's fine.
yeah, exactly. So Catherine said her first question is, how do you know if your computer has been compromised?
Well, that's a little bit more complicated because number one, I myself am not a computer expert, so I'm going to put that in there. But there are a couple of different ways. Number one, if you get the blue screen of death, that means that there's some type of virus, and if you don't have the Norton antivirus, some type of antivirus program that is running on your computer, it's going to infect the computer. Another simple way to know is if the computer doesn't turn on, that can mean that the motherboard is fried, or in fact, there's a virus that's preventing you from turning on the computer. So those are kind of the quick tips that I know about, but I don't know. I would say those are the two ones that I know about.
Yeah, you got to be careful on the computer. And now listen to this one. I've heard this before from Mary. She says, I contacted what I thought was a website for Norton antivirus. I figured out it wasn't legit and didn't get hurt. How can I be sure that I've reached legitimate help, a legitimate helpline? I'm going to just jump in because I went through some training on this, Mary. And feel free, Melissa, to add to this, but a lot of the emails we receive appear like they're coming from Amazon or Norton Antivirus or what have you. Before you click on a link, if you right click on that link, you can see the URL that you are being directed to. If it is not, Norton antivirus, like spelled exactly correctly, like the Norton website, do not click on that link. I never realized that some of these emails that these scammers are sending out look totally legit, like they're from Amazon or what have you. And make it a practice of either cutting and pasting or checking that link before you click on it. And really look through it, because what they'll do is they'll set up a website where they just misspell one name or word or have some kind of prefix or suffix to it. But to that point, Melissa, any additional feedback that you can offer on that?
Just two, and what you said is absolutely correct. What I've been telling people is, as Steve said, don't click on the link. I would even go so far as to say, if you decide to use one of the search engines, for example, Google or Bing, and sometimes they'll have a bunch of ads before they actually have the legitimate website of the company you're trying to, connect with. It may be just scroll it down or actually type in the web address itself. And if in fact you are scammed, and Steve's absolutely correct, some of these websites look absolutely amazing and they are completely fake. You want to report that to the company you're trying to adhere or to connect with, again, only because they have fraud departments. So a lot of these companies probably 15, 20 years ago did not have the fraud departments that they have today. And they continue to grow because there's so much potential fraud that is happening that they're trying to protect us from.
And then, Mary, again, great comments and questions here, Mary. My rule of thumb is that I don't answer the phone unless I hear a voice or a person I know, especially now that legitimate numbers can be spoofed. I received a call this week from a legitimate business number with whom I have a connection. I called the number and it was clear that it was not a legitimate call. And she says, my experience wasn't initiated by them. I searched for Norton, but the list was wrong. How do I know which way? Yeah, I mean, this is, we just really need to be cautious. But yeah, the spoofing of the numbers, it could look like it's your son calling you and you pick up the phone and it's a scammer.
Yeah, that's happened to a couple of my colleagues at work where the person calls back and goes, how dare you call me? And they go, ma'am, obviously my number was spoofed because I didn't call you. So it is happening more and more as technology is continuing to evolve.
Great. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Catherine says passwords tough for older adults. Any thoughts on that?
Well, they recommend that you change your password every 60 to 90 days. You want to make it a combination of numbers and letters. And some of them now are actually, companies are requiring some type of special character, whether it's an @ sign, an exclamation point, a $sign. So that's important to know. If you decide to write down your passwords, just make sure that you put them in a safe place. And if you're the only one using the computer, I would keep it by the computer. But if you have others trying to come in, you may want to put it in your wallet or somewhere safe so that that isn't stolen.
Great. Okay. And then let's see a few others, and then I'll get you back on your thing.
Oh, no worries.
Let's see. I recently received a scam letter, almost paid a scammer for my trademark registration. Yeah, I ran into that one too, Catherine. This is not unique to consumers. I actually feel like sometimes as business owners, we get so many bills, you just start paying them, and they're really good at disguising these mailers to look like a government letter. And I think you talked about roommates in your opening there. Catherine was bringing up that Silver Nest, which is a company that that we feature here regularly. They vet roommates for older adults, and they seem to be doing a really good job of serving them.
Well, that's good to hear, because people are literally taking in people that knock on their door and have no affiliation with them at all.
Well, and I hope you address this later in the call. One of the reasons why older adults are and again, I don't want to draw a stereotype, but the isolation and loneliness is something that is common in the older adult demographic. It's not exclusive. There's young people that are lonely and isolated too. However, for it's easy to identify a lonely and isolated older adult, and they can be prey for scams from a lot of people. And one of the benefits to us coming up with solutions to minimize isolation and loneliness is to reduce the scams and potential prey that these older adults
Well, and
face.
you're right, Stephen, just to piggyback on that, think about this pandemic. So we actually had a woman who lives near Fairfax Hospital who was scammed out of $120,000 in home repair scams, which is what we assist the police in those cases. And we have court coming next month against 2 defendants that the police were able to track down. And basically what they told her was, and it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, it was, I think, beginning of April of 2020. And they told her that her family sent him to her to help out because they knew that they couldn't get down to travel down from Pennsylvania. So these scammers were using the pandemic to their advantage to even further isolate their family members.
Great. Okay, we've got some more questions, but let's get you back on track, and we'll get to them at the next break.
Yeah, Steve, don't worry. There's no on track for me. I'm just gonna.
Oh no! Well, I
I
love these. I wake up every morning that we do these, and I love these audience questions. You guys are awesome. So, but this is great. So, all right.
There'll be even more. Don't worry. So the next big scam has been the grandparent scam. And this has been happening more and more. And so this happens in a couple of different forms. There is the phone call about the child being in a hospital, the child who's been kidnapped, or the child that's been arrested. And in fact, majority of the time, the child is either in school, at their home. If they're older in their early 20s or even late teens, they're at work. And again, the purpose or the goal of this scam is strictly to get money. There was actually a scam in Richmond, Virginia that was averted by a very astute Target cashier. So what happened was the woman couldn't drive. So the scammer arranged for a taxi to come pick her up, to take her to the Target to purchase $4,000 in iTunes gift cards. So the woman goes into the Target, has these cards, and said, I need $4,000 on these iTunes gift cards. So the cashier started recognizing that something was amiss, called the police, and we're actually able to catch the scammers, which is a huge success because that does not happen very often, as Stephen knows. And subsequently, she didn't lose any money as a result because of a very astute cashier. So the police in our county, we have one woman who is amazing, who's been going to like the Apple stores and trying to teach and provide outreach to the I don't know what they call them at the Apple store, but the employees, you know, the very smart people, and explain to them that if someone comes in their store to ask for $4,000 in Apple gift cards, maybe take a couple of moments to find out why they need them. And especially if it's an older person, and again, not the stereotype as Steve said earlier, but they're victimizing the older population because they know that's where the money is. So again, just keep that in mind. The romance scam, this has been a huge scam, and I think it may even come up higher on the list for 2021 scams. As we've been isolated, we've talked about this briefly. There have been stories actually on the local media. There was a guy in Maryland who actually stole, I think it was like $1.5 million from, I think it was 10 different women. There was a woman in Stafford County who was arrested who stole about, I think it was $2 million from, I think it was 15 men. So it doesn't matter what gender you are, and they are going to try to find you in some way. We have older people that, you know, get on Match.com, you know, eHarmony. There have been a lot more dating sites created as a result of the pandemic for young and older folks. So it is definitely a huge scam that is continuing to happen. We actually had a case that started out with the police, and then the police asked us to get involved because it started as a home improvement scam, and then it graduated to a romance scam over $1 million. And the woman had just lost her husband, and she was just so lonely, and she just could not bear the thought of being alone. And so the guy came to her door, he started doing handyman work, and literally within a month, he had moved into her house, like moved in, lived there full time. And she was paying for all of his food, all of his clothes, anything he wanted, she was paying for. And within, you know, and then on top of that, he was taking money from her. Now, this is a very unique story. This doesn't happen too often. Most of the romance scams are, you know, distant, where, you know, they start talking on Facebook or Instagram or Match.com. And then they start asking for money within a couple of weeks. But this one was so egregious that the police detective actually got the FBI involved because it was well over $1 million in losses. Excuse me. And as a result, the woman didn't want to believe that she had been scammed. It took the FBI literally a month of talking to her pretty much on a weekly basis to finally convince her that in fact she had been scammed. So, and he was living with her, and she really thought that this was going to be her second soulmate after her husband of 50 years died. So that's some pretty dangerous stuff to get involved with. But again, it is happening. We just want to make you aware, and we just want to keep you all safe. Social Security scams. So this has taken a couple of different forms. It used to be when checks were primarily mailed to people's homes before the invention of direct deposit. There would be people that would go through people's mail and actually steal their Social Security checks. Because, as I stated, more going to direct deposit, there are people out there that are scouring bank accounts and are taking people's Social Security checks from their bank accounts electronically. You never want to provide Social Security number to anyone who calls you on the phone or who emails you. And as most of you know, the Social Security office is never going to call you. If you have changes you need to make to your Social Security, you need to go to the office. And I know that they've been doing virtual appointments because of the pandemic. But you want to make sure that you are in as much control as you can, and actually physically see a person to make sure that they are in fact someone who works for Social Security. You can ask to see their badge. As a government official, as Stephen knows, if we're asked if we are in fact, you know, working for the state like Stephen does, or me as Fairfax County employee, I have to show my badge. And I have no problem showing my badge. I don't like my picture, but my badge is okay nonetheless. Nonetheless, you just want to make sure that you know who you're dealing with, because it's your money on the line, not theirs. And they want, and in some cases, the scammers want to take your money from you. Impending lawsuit scams, these have also become very prevalent. Again, it's a scare tactic being used, saying that if you don't come to the police station, you're going to be arrested for a crime. And they come up with all these crazy crimes. And I actually just talked to a police detective 2 weeks ago who told me that he has literally had 5 people show up to his police station in the last probably 3 months, basically turning themselves in because they didn't want to pay the fine, as it were. And they said, you know what, we'll just call their bluff. And these people thought that if they didn't turn themselves in, that they were, you know, going to have to pay all of this money. And it's a scam. So you just, again, if you're truly going to be sued, paperwork is going to be served by a detective or a sheriff's deputy or some law enforcement agency. It is not going to be, you're going to get a phone call. They're not going to ask you for money. It's just going to be the serving of papers. So they're taking these scams to the nth degree. And again, scare tactic is the #1 tactic they're using. Identity theft, this can take very many forms too. I want to make sure I have enough time for questions. So the 2 biggest types of identity theft is people stealing your credit cards and people trying to basically get your money from you. So those are the 2 main ones. We could talk about identity theft alone all day long, but I think I've incorporated some of it in our discussion. So Steve, I see that the questions are piling up. So
Oh yeah,
attack
this is great. And you know what? Let's here, I'm gonna share my camera, and if Stephen wants to come on too, because I would be interested on some of these questions, him sort of chiming in on how an attorney general's office might help with this. Let's see. All right. Awesome list of questions here. First, my good friend, Craig Clark, always great to see him in the audience. He says, be careful if you're not at 100% functioning. One morning I was tired, not enough coffee. So I broke my rule about letting people on my computer. A scammer got on, hacked me, and sent hundreds of scam emails from my address books. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to get lazy, and it's easy to do stuff when you're just kind of busy and you're, but that's great, great advice. So let's see what we got here. I saw one that I wanted to address. Oh, this one. Okay. Has anybody received the multiple phone calls from real estate investors who say they want to buy houses in our neighborhood and wondered if we wanted to sell our home? I know it's a hot real estate market, but I think because it's a hot real estate market, this is really opening up people to scams.
Well, and also think about the car market too, because I know recently there's been a lot of phone calls and mailings, not only about real estate, but about cars, because there were a lot of people that couldn't buy a used car. And so the dealerships around the area were sending letters, and I got one too that said, hey, we'll pay top dollar for your car and we'll help you get into a newer car. So anything that's happening in the news, they're going to exploit and try to scam you.
Okay, now this is one from Mary that I think is actually a really good one. And we're identifying another resource here too. She says, I've lost track of the number of times Capital One has canceled my card because it had been used by someone besides myself. Can you explain this? But I think, Mary, on this one, because I went through a personal issue here, I was blown away at the fraud protection that some of these larger credit card companies and banks and the resources that they have. And they reached out to detectives for me on my behalf and helped helped us solve this fraud problem where my card somehow got in the hands of somebody else. But if you could talk about that, when a credit card company cancels the card, what's happening there?
Stephen, do you want to take it or do you want me to take it?
I'll just add a little bit.
Sure.
I know I've had the opportunity to sit through their fraud teams training before, and it's really great group of folks. It's not a big team. I think it's like 4 or 5 people, at least in this local region. When it comes to credit card information, I mean, that's so easily accessible or easily compromised. You really have to be pretty vigilant. I'll give you an example, just pumping gas. If you use your credit card to pump gas, those machines can be compromised either by Bluetooth devices that transmit wirelessly your information. Also, sometimes they have lookalike swipes. It's like a sleeve that goes right over that credit card swiper. I always try to tug at it, just, you know, give me peace of mind and it's not a fake one, and before I put my card in there. But even that's not completely safe. So I would encourage everyone to just keep monitoring those statements when they come through. Give it a quick check, and if you see something unusual, make that phone call, because the credit card company is not always going to catch it for you. Most of the time it's going to be you. So.
Well, and the only thing I wanted to add, so the credit card companies would rather err on the side of caution to give you a new credit card as opposed to you keeping it and possibly getting fraudulent charges down the road. And so I think that there is, I think what they want to do is they just want to protect you. And I even, you know, I myself had a credit card in my wallet and it got used in New York, and my credit card company called me and said, "Did you go to New York?" And I said, "No, I'm in Virginia." So I'd rather them do that. Now, there are people I know that will check their credit card statements every day to make sure that there aren't any fraudulent charges coming. It just depends on how vigilant you want to be. So it's definitely a personal choice. And one additional item, Steve, I wanted to add based on something you said. So there is, and Stephen can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know there's legislation where banks, if there's a fraud detected, they are supposed to report certain frauds to the police. So that is something that will be happening more and more, I believe.
Yeah, and so one thing, Mary says that she's just amazed at at how the card companies can identify this fraud before we even identify, because they see our patterns and where we are. And it can be frustrating because you can go into a restaurant and all of a sudden your card's not working and you didn't check your email, or you didn't realize that the card was compromised. So I've made it a practice to always have like a debit card with me, an alternative source of payment to avoid any embarrassment when you're at a restaurant or what have you. Jessica comments on our real estate, on the question about real estate. And she says, I work in real estate. We do send letters to particular neighbors if our clients are looking for a home in that specific neighborhood. If you're interested or curious whether it's a scam or not, you should research the agent and the phone number provided in the letter. A professional agent should have their license number on the letter. Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges with scams is that there's legitimate businesses out there that are really trying to help us, and they're providing a resource. But it's unfortunate that we have to take these steps to sort of validate that I'm talking to a legitimate licensed realtor who can help me sell my house at top dollar versus somebody who's just going to basically milk my bank account. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's go back to the phone, the possible scam alerts. A question on that is that I believe, but I'm not positive, that it's almost like the bank. If they've identified that a particular phone number has been reported as a scam, there's a way that when we get a call from that number through Verizon or what have you, it's going to tag it as a scam. Is that how that works?
That is what they're trying to do based on the guidance that the Senate and Congress gave them several years ago.
Okay, great. Let's see. Okay, when managing multiple health conditions for elderly family members and caregivers, it's difficult to manage and follow up on protections against possible scammers. Is there a resource that can help manage and protect against scams by managing details? Is this something daily money managers might help with? Or is there a consumer protection resource that might help? Yeah, really good. Also, if Melissa and Stephen, this question has lots of tentacles to it, but another thing that we hear a lot about is caregivers. Caregivers getting access to bank accounts and things of that nature and committing fraud, but not just caregivers, it could be family members. I've heard that family members are oftentimes a huge segment of people that are committing scams against their own relatives.
You are correct, Steve. As
So-
sad as that is happening more and more.
And then there's certain circumstances where the courts can intervene and appoint someone to kind of manage that. And it's not necessarily that this is someone's, that the court's going to come and take all your freedoms away. It could be, it's just appointing someone strictly with the responsibility of managing your finances. So I would encourage someone who's in that position to kind of research that option.
Yeah, and I like the suggestion there of a daily money manager, which is a profession that we feature on this, some of our discussions, is that if somebody that you trust is reviewing the invoices, the bills, the mail, oftentimes it can minimize the chance of a scam being committed against an elder. Let's see.
And how many, and how, just Steve, I'm just curious, how many money managers do you know of that would be able to help some of your clients?
Oh, we've got dozens in this region, but nationwide. But again, here's something where you want to check it out, is there's the American Association of Daily Money Managers, and they are, almost all of them are licensed and bonded. They've got other clients. It's part of their business is not going to, their legit business. Now, could somebody be, faking it, but this is like, this is a way where you want to go to, if you're talking to somebody who says that they're a daily money manager, go to the trade association and validate that they're a member, and make sure that that they're legitimate.
Well, also financial advisors, if people want to go to financial advisors, there's a organization that, they have to be licensed with and registered. So that goes true to what you're saying about daily money managers.
Great. Let's see. Oh, this is one that's sort of plagued all of us but do we as consumers have a way to freeze or delete Facebook accounts? I mean, I regularly get these invitations on Facebook to connect with a friend that I already know that I'm connected with. And I'm assuming that those are fake Facebook accounts and an opportunity for somebody to actually gain my information.
Yeah, and I know, and I don't know about that. I know Facebook apparently is now changing their name and is going to be changing their business model, I think, is what I heard on the news. So I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, so here's another one. Durable medical equipment and monthly fall alert equipment. Many calls saying they already have Medicare information and were qualified for insurance to pay for this equipment. Are these just salespeople, or has anybody received these calls? So yeah, so here's a great example. Let's say a legitimate medical equipment company buys a mailing list, and they're calling people that they've have Medicare recipients. And it's sort of like, hey, did you know that you qualify for a scooter under your Medicare reimbursement? It could potentially help somebody. I think, what would be your advice for somebody to validate that this is a legitimate offer and not somebody that is sort of like now gonna scam that individual?
Stephen, do you want to take this one?
I mean, I think it would be tough to tell the difference without investing a good bit of time and doing some research, because it's a known scam where they call and they say, you qualify for this free device, and it seems really appealing, but then they ask you to verify your information, right? And it's at that point where you're handing over your sensitive info to the scammer.
So just kind of brainstorming this one, let's say that you by accident, you're on the phone with one of these folks and it sounds kind of interesting, and then they start asking you for information. That's the point where we need to be disciplined in our own approach and our loved ones' approach, and saying, no, I need to call you back and tell me the name of your company again, and I will look you up online and call through your switchboard. A legitimate company is going to say, no problem, I understand. Go ahead and do that. And when you are, well, they would just say, yeah, call me through the switchboard. My name is Mary Smith, and they're going to get connected. You
and
know?
Remember too, if you need medical equipment or a loved one needs medical equipment, you can go through your doctor's office and they can kind of help you advocate to know what you can get through Medicare, and they can help you find a provider. So you don't have to do it by yourself. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, but I know a lot of people get kind of in these situations, and number one, there's people out there to advocate for you. As Melissa had said, it's okay, you're not rude, and you can legitimately just say, I'm going to call you back. And the other thing is, you can say, I'm busy right now. Can you tell me the name of your company and I will call you back? And if they say, oh yeah, my number here, I'll make that easy, it's 888, whatever. No. Just tell me the name of your company and I'll look it up on Google. What's your name? And I'll connect with you through the switchboard. Could be one strategy.
Yeah, because if you just take the phone number that they give you, I mean,
oh yeah,
get an 800 number.
It's just like clicking on a link.
Right. If you get that name, you could research the name of that company.
Yeah. Let's see. My employer told me someone tried to submit for unemployment in my name. I reported it to the state unemployment, DOJ, and filed a police report, as well as freezed my credit with 3 agencies. Anything else I should be doing? Wow. Geez, these are horror stories.
It's also a known scam. I don't know if that one's come across your desk, Melissa, but there's one in Virginia with the Employment Commission where they're similar, where they call and say, hey, someone's filing some benefits in your name, but then they use that as a door to kind of get information from you and in verifying that it's you and stuff like that. So you got to be really careful.
Yeah, no,
but I can't think of anything else that this person didn't do that she should have done. She pretty much did everything. She covered all her bases.
Great. And Ken Silverstein, I got a little chuckle. There was the Seinfeld episode where Jerry says to the telemarketer, can I have your number and I'll call you back during your dinner? Okay, let's see. Do you have any more slides, Melissa?
I just have a couple more. I have the holiday scams I just want to go over briefly.
Great.
Okay. So some holiday scams that happened in 2020, folks, that I just wanted to make you aware that could potentially happen this year. There's the sham order confirmations, which I think someone may have alluded to in another part of my presentation. Bogus shipping notices where you didn't even order it, but they're saying, hey, it's on its way. shady email scams, clone websites, which we've spoken about, disappearing packages, and that happens a lot during the holidays. So you want to make sure that you do your best. And I know if we're working from home, it's easier, but if we have to go into the office, that's going to make it more difficult. Fake charities. And this isn't just during the holidays. This is anytime there's a disaster, any type of, issue that comes up. Just want to make you aware of that. Unreal relatives in distress. We've all probably received emails, Facebook alerts where it seems like one of our friends or family members may be in distress, and in fact, it's a scam. Sob stories on the social media, phony classified ad listings, and intercepted data, which we've covered in other elements of this presentation. So some protection tips on holiday scams. You want to make a list and a budget to keep track of what you purchased and what you're going to receive. Do your research. That is pretty much for anything that you want, because it's not easy to navigate through all of the choices that we have in this day and age with the internet. You want to look for the best deals possible. You want to keep track of your purchases, which is related to making a list and a budget. And you want to give gifts, not personal information. So I thought that was kind of clever of the Federal Trade Commission to make that bullet point. Tips to protect yourself, just to go over them. You don't have to answer the phone. You have the control and power to use this option. And I've been known to hang up on somebody mid-sentence. It may be rude, but I don't have the time nor the patience to be, listening to what I view as a bunch of crap. You don't have to answer the door, because we have some scams that are precipitated via coming to the person's home. If it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. I've said that. Trust your gut. And if you're unsure what you're being told, Fairfax County is unique that we actually have our own consumer affairs office. If you're outside of Fairfax County, but you're in the Commonwealth of Virginia, in part of Stephen's office, they have a consumer protection office, and the consumer affairs numbers here. And then if it's a reporting of a non-emergency crime, you want to contact the Fairfax County Police Department. This is their non-emergency number. And we have told people, if you feel like your personal being is in jeopardy, we actually had a woman who the scammer was literally knocking on her window and banging on her window. And she was like, why didn't we want to bother the police? And the police detective who was with me said, no, we want you to call 911 if you feel that they're going to break into your house or you're scared that you're going to be hurt. So, the resources are here. One other thing I want to add before I bring my fellow panelists and our host on is you want to make sure that you do report it. And a lot of people don't report scams because they're embarrassed. Whether it's Stephen, myself, our colleagues, other agencies, we are not making fun of you. We actually feel very badly for people who are scammed, and we try to do everything in our power to solve the problem. But sometimes we can, and other times we cannot. So that is, I think, all I had except for questions. Stephen and Steve, if you want to come back on.
Yeah, and I just looked at the clock, man. Once again, thanks to all the questions from the audience, we've gone over an hour. This has been great. I think, there's not a magic wand to eliminate scams. And that's why your offices exist, but I think you just need to be err on cautious, but realize that, there's a risk in no matter what we're doing in life, but just minimizing that risk. So just, when you go to the gas station, it's like, don't freak out about using your credit card, but recognize that there could be a potential for fraud there. And so if something looks unusual on the credit card scammer, or if you're in an area that you're not usually in, just be prepared. And I think one of the things that is a great reminder that you shared is just, it's okay to hang up and call somebody back. And it's okay to hang up with them and never call them back,
Correct.
In fact, actually, if you receive a call, if you're talking to somebody and it sounds like what they're trying to sell you is interesting to you and something that you need, go do your research, get consumers reports, find the best product that's out there, do a little bit of homework, talk to your friends and family about who they hired, and move in that direction. Well, I want to thank both of you all. We just, skimmed the surface here.
Oh yeah, we could talk about each topic for we could spend hours talking about just one topic.
But I think what we should do is let's make this a regular thing, maybe every month or every other month, where we just have a discussion on scams, and we might be able to dive into more specifics.
Yeah, if you all want one particular one, we can try to get some other people to help us talk about it. And Steve and Steven, you know how to reach us. So
awesome. All right, folks. Well, enjoy your weekend and be safe out there. And thanks everybody for your contributions.
Thank you, Steve.
Take care.
Steven. Thank you, audience.